The stump grinding.
Oh, no.
We'll have a
I
party.
don't even know what it's like to cut grass.
I can't even remember where, but somewhere out.
I used to weed eater.
Not on my birthday, man.
But I didn't think it was just.
June the 23rd, I'll be 18.
I gathered.
21st.
June the 23rd, my birthday, this June.
What, you want a
I wrote
present?
it down, but I wrote
You want a present or something or another?
I want to
She'll
stay.
just be.
The state.
Hey, ooh.
They sell in the car, they say.
Annie Jean, the 21st.
Okay.
So it's 2 days before. You'll be all right.
How old you gonna be, 39?
18.
18.
You messing
I want to
around.
be 18 again.
39, man.
I wouldn't mind being 18 again if I knew now. Knew what I
did something I hadn't done in a long time.
It'd be a wild time.
Pastor too.
You wouldn't have been.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it was wild anyway, but it would be better.
No, I'll be 71.
You that old?
Hey, boy.
You're not that old.
Pastor Law and all that.
I'm born 1947.
Look, I pastor.
You might as old. You might as old.
I don't even know the last time I saw an interview.
Did you?
It was very nice.
Good.
No, it was Tuesday night.
Heard you hobnobbed with the governor, is that
Yeah,
right?
Wow. Yeah. He sat at our table.
Yeah?
Well, he was supposed to. He visited. Then he sat down
Yeah.
at the end.
I heard he was working the room.
He was working the room.
Yeah.
It was
Okay,
fun.
put this down in my calendar.
You play today?
Yeah. Play pretty good for 7 holes.
Look at that. Boy, you piece.
And on 8, I hit it in the dang cedar tree.
You got the tee boxes. I can't stand them tee boxes right now.
Yeah, they had the tee box up.
I want to
I
get,
just came out, I hit it pretty solid. It just,
5:30.
Yeah, I went to
when it goes in there, it's gone as far as I'm concerned.
the other day.
There's ticks
Then I
in it.
came back.
Yeah,
All the ticks are in there.
Yeah.
they're hanging there waiting for you.
Yeah.
I heard if you put tea tree oil and something and sprayed it
I
on
got it
it,
now.
would be
What is it you want?
tea tree oil.
What about it? You can't stand the smell of it.
You can't, but the ticks can't either or something.
Oh, I
I
don't
read
know.
where it was good
You can't stand the smell of that stuff.
What's
Got
that?
some opinion.
Tea tree, yeah, tea tree oil. Yeah, you probably not heard of it.
TEA.
What do you do with that?
They don't put it on ticks.
You make a mixture and spray it all over you, and the ticks
Yeah,
won't
boy,
bother.
go ahead and do that.
Well, I got
him to
this
drink
stuff,
it.
put it in my spreader, and I spread it all over my yard, so that helps a little bit.
I hadn't had a tick this year.
Stan's already had
I've
one.
had 2 this
He's
year.
had, and Johnny gets them when he goes out because he's
I don't
out.
think I got them.
Is he out a lot?
Got one in the mountain. and one
Tea tree oil.
Yeah.
Where did I get mine? You can get it at Walgreens, I guess.
I wonder if
That
that
may be
mosquito
where I
spray works. Does that mosquito authority? How does that
Yeah,
work?
it works.
Where you got it from?
We did it last year.
Oh, Walgreens.
That's why I had them on my house.
No, when you go out.
You didn't have it? They were all at your house?
They all came out of your yard and my yard.
It's okay.
Maybe I'll turn around and do it to you this year.
Hey, you had any deer in your backyard?
Won't be it.
Or I know I have.
She won't have much
Yeah,
range of
I
motion.
have. I've lost
My
one
daughter
bush.
doesn't have. She brought hers and she doesn't have
Oh,
a good
pop that
range of
up.
motion on her.
Last week I looked out my window, the back window there, and there was a deer looking at me.
Yeah.
The other day I looked out, and there was a deer, I looked like the same deer as a
Because they
doe
begin to
looking
come
at me.
through,
Waiting for my tomatoes to get a little bit bigger, so
What's
they
that right now?
I told my brain.
Cut one, got mine, brother.
the what?
Cut one.
She lived next to me. Like to
Knock
ask
them
me a
down.
picture.
Those are those airlines
Come back
that
and
I,
write notes and stuff. on it.
You know, I normally put toothpicks beside this, and I didn't do that, so.
they got every one of mine and
We got
some of the others that were
I
up
couldn't
there.
go. Let me get out here early.
Anyway, some tomatoes this year.
Well, I had some tomatoes in a pot a couple of years ago, I had them on the side between me and Don.
Might have.
And man, I was looking at those things, I went out one day and there was a bunch of tomatoes out there, went out one day, wasn't a thing out there.
I gave two of these plants to Michelle. These come to see my great grandmother, Civil War era stuff.
And bought some tomatoes.
And so
Baked tomatoes,
I had
tomato
7
last night. They
plants,
were
and I
good.
gave 2 to her and planted 5 up.
I
with
could
anchors
have
in the
that.
garden.
That's what you potatoes.
Cutworms attacked mine first for
Squash
some
and
reason,
greens.
I guess, but anyway,
Just
then
cut
they
them
went
up
after
and
some of
do
the others.
Is Michelle still living?
You know, I'm hoping, I haven't asked her, but I need to.
so good.
So I keep hoping that they did.
Those are heirloom tomatoes.
They are, yeah. But I still have plenty of seed I can plant again next year. You know.
Well, she'd probably eat it like that.
Let's get out of here.
Amen.
Call the meeting to order and welcome everyone here this evening. This, again, is a work session on the upcoming budget. The first item is the approval of the agenda. We do have an addition, which would be A2B, Finance. And there's some follow-up to some questions we asked, and then a short discussion on fund balance. So, having said that, I'll ask for a motion.
I make a motion we approve the agenda with the change.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, Joe?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Tonight is your third of 3 work sessions. So just as a quick outline of what we'll cover tonight, just give you an overview of the budget schedule and process to give you and the audience where we are in the ultimate process to adopting the budget. As far as the topics that we'll discuss tonight, we'll have a discussion on community and economic development programs that are in your budget. We'll have some follow-up to a work session question that was asked both the first and second work session. And we'll also have a discussion with you about your fund balance, what your fund balance is currently, what we project it to be, and some potential policy discussion items for you all to consider at a future work session. And then, as we've done with all work sessions, we'll have a time for public input. Budget is posted on the town's website, and there are hard copies available here as well as the local library. So we've covered quite a bit of ground. We've had the budget message, and we've had 2 work sessions. Tonight's the 3rd work session. Your next steps is on Monday of next week at your regular meeting. You'll have the public hearing for the budget. The budget ordinance itself will be on your agenda and placed in your packet, and you'll have an opportunity to vote on that budget ordinance. Your options at that time will be to approve the budget that's presented to you, revise the budget that's presented to you, or table the budget that's presented to you. Depending upon the number of revisions, if you have revisions, or if obviously you decide to table it, your next meeting would be June 13th, and you can schedule any time just as long as you adopt the budget no later than July 1st. Your first presentation tonight is going to be on community and economic in the Community and Economic Development Fund. This is page E5 of your capital budget. These are just a couple of things that we'll talk about, but Mark will talk a little bit about your economic development programs, specifically your facade programs. And then as our economic development arm of the town of Zebulon, Denise Nowell of the Chamber is here to talk about the work they're doing, most specifically a proposal to do a business retention program. We'll have follow-up from your first and second work sessions, and this, what we're going to focus on is page E2 of your capital budget, and we'll follow up on the question about your payment options for the fire engine and fire ladder. And then finally, we'll have a discussion with you about your fund balance. We're going to be referencing the operating budget, pages A2 through A6 of your budget manual. This is the cover of the ordinance that's actually going to be placed on your agenda on Monday night. We'll have a discussion tonight telling you where your current balance is, as where the auditors placed it and calculated it, what we think your expected balance is going to be when the auditors come back and present to you in November of this year. And we'll talk to you about some possible future policy discussions you may want to have on your fund balance at a work session this fall. And then we'll finish up with public input. And then after we conclude tonight, we're off to the budget public hearing. With that, let me recognize Mark and Denise.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. As Joe mentioned, we are going to talk about community and economic development. Denise is going to assist with some of the material that's in the PowerPoint presentation. To start off, we went through, Bobby and I were on the Community and Economic Development Committee. Denise certainly assisted as well with that. But what we did is we reviewed and discussed the capital improvement needs as they related to the community and economic development. We assessed the needs and projects based on economic benefit and impact criteria. Does it improve quality employment opportunities? Does it increase the town's tax base? Does it diversify business offerings? Does it facilitate economic growth while protecting historical origins? Does it promote or enhance the existing commercial community? Does it enhance the visual quality of properties, more specifically storefronts and signage? And then does it expand upon existing funds or coordination with outside agencies? So as we go through, we have some bullet points here that kind of list the programs and goals as we kind of went through and consolidated. All the information that Joe noted was on page E5 of the budget spreadsheet. The first one being, does it advance Zebulon 2030, the strategic plan? So does it support the vision and mission of the plan in that the vibrant, growing community, small town charm, excellent friendly services, and then collaboration within our community? Does it also address the focus areas and goals within each of the focus areas of the plan, vibrant downtown, small town life, as well as growing smart? As Joe said, we do certainly work closely with the Chamber and all of the public-private partnerships. Certainly the Chamber has been instrumental in assisting with and delivering community and economic development related services to the community, as well as being an advocate for the business community and sharing resources and expertise. Also, does it enhance the visual qualities of properties? As Joe mentioned, the aesthetic and visual impact and programs that support it, those being, we'll get into a little bit more detail on the streetscape match and facade improvement grant. But also economic benefits and impacts. These are programs or processes that have an effect on the amount and type of economic activity occurring within our community. And then adopted plans and policies. We'll talk a little bit about the transportation and land use components. And then existing and future needs. These are some ongoing programs or efforts that may not necessarily be included within the budget or funded within this budget, but staff does continue to work towards them in the future. So with that,
So to that point about advancing Zebulon on vibrant downtown, one of the things that has been in the agreement in the past that we'll continue doing are those 4 points there: the organizing special events, marketing vacant buildings, facilitating upgrade of buildings and spaces, and developing the building and land site inventories. On the organizing of the special events, holiday happenings, the pop-up vendor market, in your December report, you heard feedback from business owners that saw a significant increase in traffic this past year. More groups were involved with the market itself. There was the addition of a stage, dancers and band. There was also increased attendance at the tree lighting, which is so good for the community. For your Christmas parade, you saw a larger parade this year with more bands. We were thankful for no rain this time, right, Curtis? And so civic groups are also working together right now. There are several civic groups that are looking for ways to partner together with the town to bring some more things that will enhance the quality of life for the downtown. On that second point for marketing vacant buildings, several businesses, the chamber in the town has had an opportunity to entertain folks that have wanted to come downtown to see what we have to offer. At least 8 spaces have been viewed, some of them multiple times, and this is helping create that open door for interested businesses to come and check us out. This leads right into ways to facilitate the upgrade of the buildings and spaces. Conversations that seem to bubble up when we're showing the spaces has morphed into the Chamber and Planning Department working together to begin streamlining some processes for marketing. So like as we listen to what these prospective business folks are saying, they're looking for things like what's the ceiling height, how thick is the floor, what about the gas and electricity. So we're beginning to collect that information so that we can help create some fly sheets for these business owners. Sometimes the business owners are not as readily available, or they're not as quick to have all of that information available. So we're looking at ways that we can help them with that so that when someone comes in and is interested, that information is more readily available. And then for developing the building and land site inventory, again, working hand in hand with the planning department to inventory and assess for potential future use. And I know Mark's speaking to that a little bit further in the presentation as well. And then about growing smart. So strengthening the existing local business, attracting external business, and developing new local businesses. We're recognizing that there's definitely a shift going on right now from evaluating how we're doing based on the number of businesses that we have to how is the business community doing? What are their challenges? How do we connect them with the resources that they need? This is where the Business Retention and Expansion Program, or BRE, will provide a framework for making this shift. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on the BRE here in a short minute, too. And then small town life, organizing special events and festivals, promoting and assisting the farm fresh market, and increasing connectedness and walkability. Supporting groups like the Miss Zebulon organization, which brought back a community event that hadn't happened in 50 years, and that reflects the kind of close-knit community that Zebulon is known for. Promoting and assisting the farm fresh market by things like having a presence at the market, and then a big partnership that we do with the market on May Day. It's just really increased the impact for the market. The chamber staff partnered with Maureen and provided the 5K winners coupons that they could use the day of the market. So in addition to the folks at the run being there the same day as the market, this way we actually were able to cross-promote both groups. And Maureen said that there were a lot of people that actually used their coupons that day, so that was good visibility for them. And then I think folks, you guys had seen, we had done a just a fly piece at the May Day and Zebulon event that promoted Zebulon, and we actually had permission to produce it early before GRCVB came out with the article, but we actually used the whole back page to promote the Farm Fresh Market because we felt like this was a day where a lot of people that might not normally come to our market would be there, and being able to promote the whole season for the market was a good opportunity for exposure for them. And then providing reduced pricing for the Farm Fresh Market vendors to actually come and participate with the Holiday Happenings vendor market is another way that we are supporting the Farm Fresh Market. And then just getting down to just community and economic development partnership, the agreement that's been in place for a couple of years now, we'll move forward with that. Mark was going to share a couple things at the beginning, and then I'll circle back.
A couple of the flyers and information that Denise was talking about that we're trying to get out and be a little bit more proactive with. One of those being a kind of welcome to Zebulon packet. And in that, we're trying to kind of give folks a snapshot of the community and some general information to be able to share with them. It'll have just general information on population, transportation, utility information, and development activity. So it may be a lot of what Denise just showed you to better market the community as a whole. The Zebulon profile, I've kind of expanded upon this, but we just put Zebulon profile on there, but it kind of includes the Zebulon profile, but also economic development information that Denise was speaking about, as well as newcomer information. So we're trying to include a little bit more information as far as contact information, who with the town, the chamber, maybe Wake County Economic Development, North Carolina Department of Commerce, some business support services, might be Wake Technical Community College or North Carolina Small Business Development Center, and then kind of going into some of the economic development profile information, as well as maybe speaking to a little bit more on the town's incentive policy and some of the requirements for it. It will probably list some of the top employers or industries with the town as well, some workforce information, as well as just general map and location information for the town. One of the things, as we have industries look at the community, we also look at some of the transportation infrastructure. So what are the major roadways, interstates, airports, any rail or transload facilities, as well as ports. And on the newcomer side of it is there's going to be some inserts into utility information and providers for the town, as well as could include some parks information. And then if you're just new to the area, some of the programs and services that the town offers. So I think Lisa might have already passed it out. There was a sheet that Wake County has some inserts for each community, and it's kind of in some of their economic and business. It's the one page here, but we do have recently submitted an update to that. I think what was passed out is the 2014 version, so it's a little dated, but Wake County is in the process of updating that, along with some other information that Denise and I and the town have provided for that. So a lot of good information, so we're trying to consolidate it and be able to also put it on our website, push it out to those that are looking at our community.
And then another piece that we'll use for community and economic development is having a presence in this Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau piece. I think I shared this with you guys at the last regular meeting. It's a 2-page article which was done. It was really well done. It was a nice partnership between the town and the chamber. It highlights some of our businesses, not just in the downtown, but businesses that are very key businesses for our community. So that's another way that we can help market. And those are the kind of pieces that some of our like realtors and some of those groups are looking for, is they're looking for when people are coming to this area, in addition to like a newcomer packet, they're looking for things that they can use to market Zebulon. And then another thing that ties in with community and economic development, that partnership, is this Zebulon Next event. So we do this every other year, and so that comes up this year. That's our Economic Growth Conference. It's set for Thursday, October 4th, and this is a venue for addressing future growth and economic perspectives for Zebulon. And one of the things that you'll see this year is just an expanded opportunity to talk about not just us being the easternmost municipality in Wake County, but also the fact that we're the gateway to these other communities, and we're right here sitting in the middle of it. So.
I will insert that I've thought that we were the gateway between the Piedmont and the coastal plain.
Nice.
And that is just east of us where you drop into the coastal plain.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you. And then also along with that is the May Day in Zebulon. We'll continue doing that. I wanted to just touch quickly on that to say the last 2 times that we've done May Day in Zebulon, we've tried to grow it each time. But I just wanted to share that groups that have now become a part of May Day don't just include the Farm Fresh Market, the Mudcats, and the 5K runners. It now includes the Steel Magnolias Garden Club, the Boy Scouts, the Boys and Girls Club, ZDAC, which now has their 501c3 and they're official, the Friends of Wake Lawn, and some food trucks. So it's been fun to see that the community is looking for something that's more like a festival and includes a lot of components. And by including several of these groups, it gives each of those groups an opportunity to have some recognition as well, which is good for community. And then GSK. So this is something that you've not seen as far as our conversation between us and the Community and Economic Development Partnership. Part of the community development includes creating and enhancing partnerships for the good of community. And last month, GSK partnered with the chamber and the town to allow access to land that for years has been unused. Site Director Troy Webb met with us, then worked through Greg with Parks and Rec, as well as Chris with Public Works, to make a portion of the nearly 6 acres of land available for parking. Because we were able to use it for parking, we were able to add all other components for May Day and Zebulon, which is fun. So future use of the land has been promised to the town for recreation. We'll report back to you, the board, once details are in place. I understand that there are a lot of personal memories and ties to that land, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it helps this next generation of our youth and kids enjoy that space. And then at the bottom of that slide is just our introduction to the Business Retention Program. So Business and Retention and Expansion, or BRE. The majority of all new investment and job creation comes from businesses that already exist in a community. A BRE program helps provide a framework for retaining and growing existing businesses, and it helps identify businesses that may be at risk for either closure or downsizing. The program of work will be specific to the needs of our business base, and it'll include things like surveying existing businesses about their needs, obstacles to growth, expansion plans, supply chain, workforce, and other factors that contribute to business sustainability and expansion potential. We'll also do deep dive interviews with a select group of businesses. This will help us identify gaps and obstacles that can be fulfilled through focused programs or resources. Then as we grow, we'll collaborate with groups like Wake Tech, North Carolina Economic Development Association, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Small Business Association, the North Carolina School of Government, and a few others to provide focused training and/or education to meet these needs once they've been identified. The BRE will also include a component that the mayor and I have talked about before, which would be in-person visits between the mayor and I, or sometimes together, because it's great sometimes for the businesses to actually see someone from their community leadership. Metrics will be put in place to help track the progress of the BRE. So initially they'll be put in place so that we can establish a baseline for how our business community is doing, and then they'll be in place so that we can measure and determine at intervals, and then be able to report back out to the board. The chamber will continue working hand in hand with the planning department and, with the town, but in specific, the planning department. So kind of to pull it together on a BRE, a business retention and expansion program, it fosters a healthy ecosystem for the sustainable economic growth, and it speaks to your town's desire for pursuing smart growth, and it'll position Zebulon. I was thinking about this today as I was putting all this together. It'll actually position the Zebulon business community to be ready to meet the demands of the growing residential community, because both are critical for our sustained growth. And we want both to be in place as we continue to grow.
With regards to the streetscape match policy that was mentioned earlier, it enhances the visual qualities of the properties downtown, and through this, some of the goals of the program are to promote the establishment of design guidelines. This could be through landscape signage as well as receptacles downtown. Could also facilitate pedestrian access into and within the downtown district. This can be done through either wayfind signage or street furniture. Also creates temporary or permanent gathering places. The tree ceremony kind of shown on the side there, the Christmas tree, the mini park. It could be art sculptures or exhibits, as well as a stage for various types of events downtown. Two of the grants that were kind of given out are kind of shown on the side there. One was both of these were facilitated by the Public Works Department, but It is, the amount of sponsors that were included with the flower pot, as Denise mentioned, some of them, the Zebulon Women's Club, Do For Him Ministries, and Steel Magnolias Garden Club. So some good work there and sponsorships. And then the Christmas tree was between the town as well as the Zebulon Women's Club, as well as the Chamber of Commerce as well. So with the budget that we're showing, it is a slight reduction in the total amount of funds that are going to the program, but we're hoping to increase the amount of funds per grant and hopefully get some of the larger ticket items that may kind of be lingering out there as well for possible inclusion. The facade improvement grant program is certainly a program that we've seen a lot of success with and gotten a lot of improvements downtown. It certainly has been used as a mechanism to stimulate and leverage private investment. It is a way to enhance the appearance and condition of some of the structures downtown. Certainly supports local businesses. And as you can probably see when you drive downtown, the significant impact on the attractiveness and marketability of the surrounding area. This is pulled from the kind of budget insert, but one thing that I want to note is the private investment that is listed for each of these, and of the four that are shown, Whitley Galleries, Ashbrook Builders, Brian Bullock's building, and then Pizza Amore have all been completed. But the private investment is only what the amount of investment that went toward the grant reimbursement fund. So the total amount of investment for some of the upfits and interior improvements and equipment that's being done is over $420,000. So certainly have seen a huge amount of investment put downtown. So the interest of the program and possible expansion of the program is why we've increased that budget amount there. With regards to some of the economic benefits and impacts, first one that is noted there is the site assessment program. This is a program through Wake County Economic Development that looks at ways to logically and economically develop industrial sites. We basically take all of the available industrial sites in town and put it through a scoring system that the county and a consultant came up with. And it scores the location, the site itself, and any transportation facilities that are near or at the location. So it's kind of a tiered approach, and it helps the town figure out where we need to kind of look at our resources and see which sites in town are top priorities, so we're not possibly going after a bad site that doesn't have either infrastructure in place or may have some environmental issues. So with that, the top site that was scored in the program is the site 709 East Gannon is one of the addresses for the property, but it's the available property where the two homes were recently demolished there before you get to regional waterproofing. But we've been talking with O'Brien Atkins, a firm in Raleigh, and working with Providence Bank out of Rocky Mount. They recently merged with Cornerstone Bank, so we're looking at ways to better market the site, but also get some better information on the site, whether it's the GIS data that has some of the property conditions, some of the natural features, what is the terrain, hydrology, soils, and vegetation. And then we're going to look at some of the zoning conditions, some of the setbacks. Are there any height limitations or density requirements or any other development regulations that may be out that someone may want to look at as far as if they're interested in developing that site.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
In the past, when we've talked to landowners about this type of program, which I think is a very good program, by the way, the agreement has been that they would reimburse us for all of this assessment once the property was sold. Is that being done here?
We are, that is if you're getting to a site-ready or shovel-ready type project. So it goes into a lot greater detail. What we're doing with some of the site assessment program information is kind of scratching the surface to what the site has to better market the site. So We did throw out that as an option for this site, but based on the size and some of what's already known with the property as far as utilities or some of the larger ticket items that may come up, it was recommended that it was around, I think, $50,000 to $100,000 would be to get it to the shovel-ready type site. So based on that, the consultant didn't recommend going to that level of detail on this particular property.
Who didn't recommend?
OBA, the consultant that we're working with the bank. However,
Well, it
we
just
did,
seems to me that, and I'm in favor of doing this stuff, but it just seems to me that if it goes to the benefit of the property owner, what we're doing is fronting the money, and then we should get reimbursed when they sell the property.
and in this case, I think the bank is going to shoulder a lot of the costs. I think they're going to absorb 100% of the cost for the environmental research that's going to be done on the property, but some of the other, they're going to at least conceptually pay for it up front, and we'll be reimbursing them up to a certain amount. So we're still working out some of the details on that, but they're probably going to cover anywhere from 60 to 70% of the research that's being done on the property.
But they will recover theirs.
Correct, but it is a way to better market and develop the site, but
Okay.
yes.
You know how I feel about it. I'm in favor of the program. I've wanted it for years. We've talked on certified sites before. It just seems to me that we should have that conversation about reimbursing the town once the property is sold. Not until, but once it's sold. So we'll move on.
Correct, and the,
Is that for industrial property, Martin, you can do that?
yes,
Industrial property?
yeah. For this
Just
one, I
don't
mean,
really-
it's going to be, the information that is obtained is going to be used for, could be commercial or industrial, but some of the larger shovel-ready sites are more just
You're talking
industrial.
about how big, how many acres are you talking about, to have a site assessment done?
This one is around, I think the total site's 41, 42 acres, but the
Yeah, minimum.
usable acres is about 34.
I just, all these lots around town, but you're talking about a large plot. What's the minimum that you do a shovel-ready site?
I think minimum for the program is 10 acres, but when we looked at Bill McNabb's property, I think it was 250 acres, so that was much larger.
Does that include a street that would connect over to Nomical?
A lot of times it'll show the transportation infrastructure connection to that infrastructure, but it may not. It depends on what level of detail. I think what the mayor was talking about with the shovel-ready, it would look more at illustrations or conceptual drawings, which may have a component of access in and out, parking, storm drainage, things of that nature.
I know that we had discussed that that would ease some of the situation there where we put up a new stoplight going in there. So.
Yeah, and we did share with them the second drive in and out of the industrial park, so they're aware of the plans that kind of have been looked at with that, but certainly it hasn't been designed yet. Let me see, we've also looked at the Duke Energy Carolina Site Readiness Program is on the calendar year, so January to December, but we're potentially looking at that as an option to submit for that program, which also evaluates and looks at solely industrial sites that Duke Energy services. It doesn't get to the level of detail that the mayor was talking about with regards to site certification, but it is intended to kind of identify or assess and improve and increase the awareness of sites. Also mentioned on here, natural gas and fiber. We are speaking with the utility providers for those on possible extensions, either into or outside of the industrial park or other sites that may service some of these larger potential industrial sites as well. The building site inventory, this is a program, CoStar is the name of it. It's a comprehensive inventory of commercial properties. It does give the ability, similar to Realtor.com, to provide research on the real estate, but also provide some additional information that Denise was speaking to, more specific to the location itself, provide some information on leasing as well as any sales information or realtor information as it relates to the property. And you can generate reports from that to better, when Denise and I are showing some of these properties, it helps to provide more specific information to the potential purchaser of it or leasee. And then downtown market analysis. This helps businesses understand the trade area to improve sales, also helps explore some of the business development opportunities, and then demonstrate some of the economic importance more specific to the downtown area. This does help to some of the businesses that have either opened downtown. It certainly helps with our tours of buildings downtown. And then it also helps businesses that are either coming and doing marketing efforts to bring more businesses downtown. With regards to adopted plans and policies, this is the Transportation Land Use Plan. This would revise and update the transportation plan. The last major comprehensive planning effort was done in 2001 for the transportation plan and 2008 for the land use plan. It does serve as a guide for policy changes, land use and transportation planning, economic development forecasting, as well as Ms. Carpenter mentioned last time, the historic preservation planning efforts to look at, as well as budget preparation and then capital improvement planning efforts by the town. Sorry. Sorry. Also helps create a comprehensive and proactive plan for the town, both on the transportation side as well as the land use side. The last revisions to the plans, while they've had public hearings on the amendments, we're looking at doing a much more heavy public involvement process and engagement efforts with regards to transportation planning as well as land use. Certainly the picture that Joe provided in one of the previous presentations is a lot of our agricultural land that's being converted into some of these subdivisions, and then the impacts on the transportation plan itself certainly is quite large. So a lot of this looks at the long-range planning needs of the town, and then it'll also look at and update some of the growth and development figures and make sure that we're growing appropriately. And ensuring that it's a coordinated approach with a lot of our current plans, as well as some of the more recent plans that were approved, the Greenway and Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan, as well as the strategic plan that has been referenced throughout as well. Does create a desired vision for the town. And one of the things that statistics that was kind of interesting with regards to the land use plan is the land use plan, the current plan from 2008 has goals, policies, and action items. So of the 25 goals in the plan, 21 have been achieved, which is 84%. 41 of the policies that are noted in the plan, of those 24 have been implemented, which is 58%. And then of the 45 action items, 34 of those have been accomplished. So certainly, this isn't a plan that sits idly on the shelf. We continually look at that and plan for the future of Zebulon. So. Some of the existing and future needs, we did want to note, Bobby and I did a lot of research as well as contacting some other communities with regards to, we know that the building reuse internal improvement program revolving loan was of a big interest, and we have done a lot of legwork into looking at the program itself. Once we got into contacting some of the communities as well as looking at some of the programs, it was a little bit more expansive than what we were able to put together this fiscal year. So we're continually looking at that, and potentially we'll have something for you next budget year to look at. But it would allow for financing with business startups and expansions. It looks at some capital expenditures, can be used as seed money for any grants or to support some of the municipal funds. And they're one of the things that all the communities have. If it didn't have a 501c3 in place, it had a loan review committee that looked at and evaluated each of these. And then I think we have to do a little bit better coordination with some of the agencies and lenders to administer the funds, should that be a program that we look at for next year. So it's an item that we're kind of putting aside for now, but we're continually looking at that, and we'll likely have something for you next year that touches on that a little bit more.
Can you expand on that a little bit more? Building reuse, internal improvement, revolving loan. Can you expand, what are you talking about?
Basically, if...
There's some good words up there, but I want to...
I'll use...
Just give us an example of what's expected to happen and...
If I'll just use a brewery, for example. If a brewery looked at downtown Zebulon and was able to acquire a low-interest loan from the town and/or lender associated with it, it could go to support some of the internal improvements that they would have to do, equipment upgrades or improvements that would need to be installed. So these are loans that would eventually be paid back to the town, but it would be a little bit more easy for them to acquire potentially and receive, for just one example. But
So the loan would come through the town or by the town or what now?
typically, the town may contract with a lender, for example, and they would administer the loan itself, but we would help coordinate with that, or say, similar to the facade program, it would have guidelines as far as what would be covered with regards to the loan and the process for acquiring the loan.
We're actually required to have, I think it's 2 points over the interest rate by a bank. But it also, we can, through this program, we can get the money out quicker than, in other words, make it available more quickly than a bank will. But the bank would administer it. They would be responsible for making collections and that sort of thing, and that money would come back to us, and then we can loan it to somebody else. So it would be a revolving fund.
It would just be like cosigners, kind of.
Somewhat.
Cosign the loan, yeah.
In the loan
Well, no,
business.
it's probably our money, it's just they administer it, and they can do it, the banks can do it. I've talked with one bank about this, and they get, and I apologize, I don't know exactly what the credit's called, but they get some credit for doing stuff like this with the community. So they're open to take a look at this and work with us.
What it really does is, I think, makes it easier for these people to get loans than having to go directly with the bank and the drawn out process.
Depending on how we set the underwriting and that sort of thing, yeah, I think you might be right. But it helps. I mean, it really helps them. And
A lot of times they go for loans and they got to go through a process that,
yeah, again, Dale, depends on the underwriting guidelines that we set up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Mark.
No, you're fine.
And then just addressing some downtown efforts that we're doing right now. So new growth is popping up all over downtown. As we continue to see the downtown come to life, there are things that we can be doing to help facilitate growth, ways that we can be proactive and then ready for the challenges and programs that we can research to best fit our needs for our community. First things first on downtown efforts, in terms of things popping up, Sycamore Crossing, which is a part of Zebulon Drug, has reopened, and their ribbon cutting is tomorrow at 10, so you're all invited officially. Another milestone celebration that will happen this year is the 100th anniversary for Debnam Ace Hardware, and that'll be on June 16. Some other efforts that are underway include things like collecting data from these visits that folks have come to our community. Also collecting data from visits to other downtowns. The chamber in the town has done some visits to prospective businesses. We've also had conversations with various downtown entities like downtown revitalization groups, merchants associations, Market Street Services groups. Attendance at North Carolina's Main Street Conference was in Clayton earlier this year. Listening and responding to business owners. There's a lot of chatter going on right now, and we're wanting to make sure that we are listening and that we're available for those conversations. Also important to continue working with our building owners so that those buildings are available for folks when they're looking for a space to be. And then assessing needs and creating a portfolio of information for the buildings that can be marketed. So I want to conclude with a story that highlights several pieces that we've sort of touched on. At the beginning of the year, the Chamber received a phone call from someone interested in opening a business in the downtown Zebulon area. After a few conversations, we invited them to the Chamber's annual banquet to connect with our board, to connect with you as local business leader, local elected officials, and then with some of our local business leaders as well. So they attended and made some meaningful connections with several key individuals. In upcoming weeks, we continued the conversation, and we learned that they had chosen Zebulon because they love the area and want to be part of bringing new life to the downtown. Next, we connected them with some building owners to see some spaces. From there, we connected them to the planning department, and then they started talking about this space that they had fallen in love with. They've now circled back with the building owner to clarify terms and are just weeks or maybe days away from sharing their news publicly. So to kind of pull that together, it's an entrepreneurial couple that came with an idea to Zebulon. They had questions, they got answers, and they're moving forward. On the flip side of that, a building owner was considering what to do, what are their options for marketing their empty space. They met this business-minded couple, and they caught the vision. So the town and the chamber really played roles of conduit and connector, and this is community and economic development. And just the end of all of this is that I believe this to be a community that really values staying connected. We're growing faster than we realize, and the things that you as a board are doing to prepare for what's ahead will deepen our roots so that we stay grounded as we create a vibrant downtown, we grow smart, and we retain our small town life.
That was it. Okay, any other questions?
So that concludes the details behind the distinct programs that are listed for you on page E5 of your budget. And so if you all have any questions or comments on any of the programs listed for Mark or Denise, this would be an opportune time.
Anybody have any questions?
I think one thing we need to solve downtown probably is some parking situations too, so.
Yeah, and so actually that's something that's in process right now. The planning department has worked on a couple of things that they are putting together, and both Mark and I are going to put together an opportunity to speak with some of the business folks downtown. So that'll be a first step as a placeholder.
Other questions, remarks? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is Bobby Fitz to follow up on payment questions you had, but also we've recommended you use considerable amount of fund balance, so we wanted to give you some details behind how that use relates to your policy. Also give you some foreshadowing of what we think is going to be a policy discussion that you all will need to have on your fund balance policy.
All right, just to follow up on the question about the payment and deferring a payment, or however you want to put that, it would be $85,000 additional interest to take the loan this year and make the first payment, and that's FY20.
And it seems like the delivery of the truck, if that was a concern, like paying before we ever get the truck, it looks like this is going to be more like 9 to 10 months, so maybe like a April, May timeframe that we'd be receiving it. So does that answer?
Well, I don't quite understand. Are you saying then that basically we're making the payment up front, so we're borrowing less money?
Not borrowing less money, but paying less interest due to starting paying earlier. And one thing you could do is, let's say you want to wait till April to close the loan, and then make the payment next year. That would save some interest, but what you do, what happens when you're waiting in this interest rate environment, the rates are more headed up, more likely to go up than go down. So you take that chance if you wait.
Well, okay, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it just seemed to me that you were borrowing the money and paying interest to sit on it, as opposed to using it. So if it was 85,000, for example, you could make a prepayment and borrow less money.
Good.
You know, you understand where I'm coming from here? Because
Right.
why would we borrow money and sit on it for a year or almost a year?
Well, you could borrow less. You could. Let's say you make a down payment of let's say 90,000
Right.
this year, and then borrow 90,000 less.
Correct.
You know, you can do that.
Okay, well, we'll chew on that, so.
But you have to make a down payment when you order it, Bobby.
No. Not with this vendor.
But the 85 is basically saying we're paying for the commitment. Somewhat.
Somewhat, I guess you could say that.
I don't know. It makes sense to me, but that's fine. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm just going to review our fund balance policy with regards to, as Joe mentioned, the proposed fund balance used in this budget. This chart will show you the balances and percentages as of June 30th, 17. These are actuals, okay? We had a total fund balance of about 9.1 million, almost 7.9 million of that was unrestricted. With regards to our fund balance policy, which is 50% of projected expenditures, that 50% floor is the 5.6 million there. That's 50% of our FY18 budget, which is about 11.3 million, roughly. So these are actuals. So you see, at June 30, 17, we had roughly $2.2 million of, if you want to call it available fund balance to appropriate however you might want to appropriate it. I think you've seen this before, but this is how Moody's, their rating methodology works. When they're rating corporations, municipalities, whatever, this is the little scorecard that they use to determine the rating, like A, AA, AA1, AA2, so on and so forth. Finances is 30% of the score, as well as the economy and the tax base. Management and your debt and pension kind of scores are 20% each. We're AAA worthy on our finance section and our debt and pension section, as well as the management. Our drawback from not getting a AAA rating is basically the economy and the tax base piece, because we're just got a smaller tax base, and our median household income is a little lower. But the fund balance as a percentage of revenues is a 10% of that 30% as a sub factor. So we're AAA, like I say, we're AAA worthy there. Here's about a 6-year history of our fund balance as a percentage of operating revenues. We're at like 83 up to 92% each year, when what they require for getting the max on that is 30% or more. So we're well above that, and we're well above the U.S. median for municipalities of 32.5. This is a projection for June 30, 2018, projecting a total fund balance of about almost 9.6 million. About 8.3 million of that is unrestricted. And with our projected expenditures for this year, about 14.1 million, that puts our 50% floor at a little over 7 million. It's important to note that with the fire truck purchase this year, that kind of skews the whole, this bar here, higher than usual. And next year should come down, possibly. So this in the assigned portion here includes the amount appropriated in this proposed budget. So we still would have about 1.3 million excess above the policy. Any concern about what might happen? Let's say we have another recession. The $9.5 million fund balance, let's say we have another recession like we did from about 2008 to 12 area. We lost about $637,000 in personal property, be that Glaxo, U.S. Foods, whoever. That's a total loss that we incurred. Let's say U.S. Foods was to shut down for some reason. That would be, in addition to another recession, their personal property and that come out to about $685,000. Let's say all those and GSK was to up and leave. Their personal property, in addition to the previous two, is about 2.2 million. And our policy would require a $7 million fund balance. So still, we'd be okay if that was to happen.
Does the loss of a large industry take into consideration the impact on the employment within the community and the money that's spent here in other businesses?
Say that again? I don't believe so.
Okay.
With regards to...
For example, we lose, let's say we lost GSK, okay, or U.S. Foods, any of them, but you have the employees that move to find other employment, which means that they're spending less money with other businesses, which puts them more in harm's way. Has any of that ever been considered into these numbers?
Not really.
I mean, I think that's important as an impact. I mean, obviously, the loss of tax base, I mean, the property, physical property is still going to be there.
Right.
But, you know, when you move out the internal equipment and all, you lose that. But I think that the other impact is something that should be considered.
When you say that, you're talking like sales tax and...
Sales tax is one of it. I mean, you know, if I have a business downtown and all of a sudden, you know, a bunch of people move out because they're not employed here, and so they're not spending money with me. I mean, I know this is hard to quantify. I mean, I understand that, but I think it's part of the impact to consider is the loss to the rest of the economy of the town because of the loss of that business and those jobs.
Yeah, that would be hard to measure, but...
Oh, I know it would be, but I think we have to keep it in mind.
Well, you also need to, if you're going to do that, you need to know how many of those folks are actually living in the community or other than commuting to work here, so.
And that's true. Right now, we are a a positive place of employment. I think we still are. But, you know, we're still, it's still a consideration because they go out to lunch here, they buy gas here, they, you know, there's money they spend within the town. But yeah, you know, it's extremely hard to quantify. I understand that. It's just something to be aware of.
Okay, just a review for those who may not remember what the policy is. Our current policy adopted in 2011 is to have a unrestricted fund balance of 50% or more of projected expenditures. So what you saw before, that 7 million and change, that would be the required amount to keep for next fiscal year with the $14.1 million proposed budget.
Question?
Any questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, I'll ask now if there's anyone in the public that has any comments that they want to make or questions that they want to ask. And again, the public hearing will be next Monday night, but you're welcome to come up now and ask any of you or make any remarks. Okay, Joe, manager's report.
Nothing to add other than just June 4th is the budget public hearing, and the budget ordinance will be on the agenda.
That it?
Yes, sir.
Boy, that's quick. Okay. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second. We're adjourned.
I don't know if I can carry all this or not, yeah.
I know it.
We need bigger books.
This one, June.
Hey, Tim.
That's the tail board meeting, that's the public hearing.